I got to roll up the sleeves for this one because I think I might anger some people. But you always feel sometimes you have a job, a relationship, maybe even a friendship or even a game. You're just like, man, I'm kind of trapped here. Just really can't see a way out of this. You start looking left, you start looking right. You're like, man, I don't know. I don't really know about this. So last year, the Lakers were in an interesting spot. They were about a couple of years, they're about a year removed from the bubble championship, in which they took down a very tired Jimmy Butler in the Miami Heat 4-2. And they had just been eliminated in the first round due to Anthony Davis' injury, which we'll get into in a second, against the NBA finalist runner up in the Phoenix Suns. So there's a lot of questions and a lot of answers. The Lakers did some shuffling. And what I find very interesting is I was very against it. And I'm not one to come out on the show and be like, all this crazy aggressiveness. But something I do want to address is how I feel the Lakers are in a really bad spot. And it started with this Russell Westbrook trade. I was not a fan of it coming out. I said, he's going to give you energy. He's going to give you a lot of heat, a lot of passion. He's going to be really great for that roster in terms of what he can bring when LeBron is off the court, when Anthony Davis is off the court. He can still be a star in certain cases, but it was an absolute disaster this year. The Lakers finished 33-49 and missed the playoffs entirely and the play-in tournament, which they scratched. They got into last year by defeating Golden State Warriors. That was actually one of my favorite games that I've watched. It was an absolute, just masterful showing by LeBron. And there's been a lot of things that I want to comment on them. There's nothing against Darvin Ham and his Darvin Ham, that hire with the Lakers. Nothing. That's a fantastic hire, what they're doing. It's just that I think he might be walking into a trap. Let's just run down the list. So as of right now, LeBron is not committed to anything past his contract, which is next year. The Lakers owe Westbrook a lot of money in the 40 million range. I think it's 47 for next year if they decide to opt into that contract. And Anthony Davis has not shot a basketball since April. One of those is not as big deal as the others, but there's just a lot of things that every time I look on the Lakers or look at something, I'm just like, gosh, I'm just not sure about this. And I'm not coming out by saying that this Lakers experiment with LeBron has been a disaster, because I think some would say, hey, they got their title in 2020. Who cares? But I think when you sign on LeBron and you get Anthony Davis and you have star-studded caliber like that, you have two all perennial players, all pro players that can change the court like that, is one title enough? It's like LeBron said in Miami, not one, not two, not three. There's just a lot that's happened, and that this team is almost playing against themselves. The clock is going against them in a lot of ways. I just want to run something at you guys. LeBron has averaged just 55 games with the Lakers since he's been there. He hasn't played a full season, and the injuries are starting to pile up, and the age is starting to show. I'm not also saying that LeBron is by any means terrible, because he had averaged 30 points a game this season when he was on the court. So when he's on the court, he's a game changer. This Lakers team is not a disaster by any means, but there's also a standard we hold teams with LeBron James on and Anthony Davis on, all-star caliber players, Hall of Fame caliber players. There's just something wrong. There's just always something with this team. And as they get older, they're going to get more brittle. Russell Westbrook is a big example. As he's gotten older, that athleticism started to drop. He didn't play a full season. Now some of that was rest, some of that was this and that. It just feels like a giant disaster. Do I have all the answers? No, but every time I look at this roster and every time I look at this team, we're going to actually find out a lot. Are they going to be aggressive with the draft? Are they going to be aggressive in free agency? They can't really be aggressive. I think a lot of these consistent words that I find when I read these certain articles are minimum contracts or quick contract, or basically they're financially trapped because they owe LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook just unreal amount of money. And I don't think they're getting the best production out of them. I don't think LeBron is also committed to playing for the Lakers long term. Now, this could all change if he decides to stay and say, hey, maybe I don't play with my son. That's just not how it's meant to be. Anthony Davis, is he going to stay healthy? That's the big question mark. When this team has LeBron and Anthony Davis healthy, this is a completely different team. It's a gamble, however, as Anthony Davis has not played a full season either since he's been with the Lakers. And that was even with that bubble run. That bubble run was a blessing in disguise in many ways, as it gave the Lakers 3 months off to rest. Their roster is old. Their roster is brittle. It's very compact, and there's a lot of talented players on there. Carmelo Anthony can still give you a nice night every now and then. Malik Monk is a very promising young player who's very capable, but can they keep him? They've got a lot of great pieces, but they also have a lot of big questions. Has this team finally restored their vision and their game plan for the future? I'm sure they don't want to miss the playoffs for a second straight year in a row. They just fired their coach who did so, and Frank Vogel is a mess. It's crazy. And only under the scope of LeBron James do we have this type of outlook. And for the Western Conference, it's only going to get more competitive. You have the Phoenix Suns, who are going to stick around as long as Chris Paul's on that team, teaching these guys how to win. They have a lot of great players. If they can get Ayton back, even better. The Golden State Warriors, who just won the NBA Finals, defeating the Boston Celtics, they aren't going anywhere, guys. They got a lot of great players, and they still have that core of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. They're not going anywhere. You got the Memphis Grizzlies, who are continuing to get better. John Morant is a young rising superstar. Teams like the Denver Nuggets are going to get Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. back. They're kind of like the Lakers in a way. If they're healthy, they're dangerous. They're crazy. You have teams like the Timberwolves, who are continuing to get better. You have teams like the Pelicans with CJ McCollum. Can Zion Williamson come back? There's a lot of question marks, but the Lakers fall right into that question mark. Where do they lie in this Western Conference scheme? Where do they lie within this plan? Because there's a lot of teams that are better than them, but there's also a lot of teams that if they're on the same health playing field, the Lakers can rise above that with the experience of a LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You can't tell me that a healthy LeBron and Anthony Davis can't make the playoffs when they're healthy. That's a big if. It's a little bit of everything right now. There's a lot of different factors that you're just, as if you're a Lakers fan right now, you're like, oh my gosh, how are we going to fix this? I think what the Lakers need to do is they need to kind of just do some roster work. And I think they might need to give up on this Russell Westbrook experiment as quick as possible and find some key players. I don't know how you're going to get that contract or get rid of it, but I don't know if this core works. I'm not sure. And now I think some of you guys may say, hey, why are you doing this rant if you don't have a solution? That's because I can't find one. I was trying to think of certain players. Maybe you can sign on a Bruce Brown. You can maybe sign on a Kevon Looney. You can sign an Otto Porter. Guys who are cheap, who can contribute, who have playoff experience. I'm just not sure. I think that we're going to get a lot more answers, but I did want to get on this before free agency and the draft started because it is very interesting. And the Lakers are fun to talk about. I mean, why wouldn't I want to talk about LeBron James and his quest for title number 5? It's crazy. I just love it. So, guys, I'm going to take a short break. Hope you guys enjoyed that segment. When I return, we're going to talk about why Baker Mayfield and the Browns could really benefit from each other and why maybe Baker could save them. This is the Man with the Plan podcast. We'll be right back.